We'll unpack the implications later, but for now, let's move on to where historical Protestantism and the more modern non-denominational churches differ. The primary point of disparity between the two is the leadership and authority structure. Upon their rejection of the Church's divinely instituted teaching authority and over against the consensus of historical Christianity, Protestant bodies noticed the need for some kind of authority structures as soon as real pastoral life pressed in. They addressed it by building second-order governance. Confessions, synods, bishops, conferences, courts, and they genuinely improved stability, discipline, and coordination. Yet because these structures are associational and revisable, remember, they reject the notion of any sort of absolute or indefectible church authority. The final court remains exit. Authority only binds those who consent to remain. And so, people congregated around whatever church body aligned with their own views or made the most sense in light of their understanding of Scripture. Whenever a member disagreed with their church on any given issue, they were free to find another that was more closely aligned with their own personal convictions, or even start their own churches and form new denominations. Many did, and thus the fragmentation continues to today. So fast forward 500 years, and we have some of these original church bodies still around, and we have the non-denominational crowd still around. Those who split from whatever church they started in and start their own church. Broadly speaking, the only essential difference between the two is historical establishment. The benefit of being around for 500 years is that you've had time to formulate and edit creeds and confessions, hammer down authority structures, and write all the fine print regarding ordination and local worship practices. Interestingly enough, many non-denominational churches are in the early stages of doing just that, especially the larger regional and global movements that are developing more and more concrete guidelines and structural developments to ensure uniformity across multiple local campuses. For instance, C3, the church that I was at prior to converting to Catholicism, had regional directors and regional boards, global directors and global boards, extensive networking and interconnectivity across numerous countries, and have accomplished at least basic doctrinal and liturgical unity across roughly 500 congregations in more than 60 countries. Now, numbers-wise, that may pale in comparison to some of the larger Protestant denominations. For instance, the United Methodist Church reported in 2022 nearly 30,000 congregations in the U.S. alone, with obviously higher global totals, though recent disaffiliations have reduced the U.S. number, which highlights how Protestant churches or denominational authority only applies to those who consent, but I digress, at least for the moment. On the other hand of the spectrum, the smallest of the long-standing historical denominations, the Reformed Church in America, founded in 1628, has about 580 congregations and just shy of 80,000 members. So I would argue that while non-denominational churches may shun the terminology and the connotations of being declared their own denomination, all of the standard criteria are met to be considered denominational in everything but name. The standard criteria for a church to be considered denominational to begin with are as follows: translocal governance, central elders and boards over all the campuses, able to make binding policies that local sites must follow, shared doctrine and enforcement, a statement of faith with teeth, the ability to hire and fire and enact church discipline tied to it, credentialing pipeline, standardized training, assessment, and placement of pastors across campuses per church standards, common liturgical style or template, recognizable worship order down to sacramental practice and curriculum, discipline and appeals beyond a campus. Leaders can be removed or instituted by the central authority. Members and pastors can appeal upward. Corporate institutional continuity, a global brand, legal entities, budgets, missions persisting beyond one leader. So with that being said, I dare say most non-denominational megachurches would fit this criteria, perhaps without the name, but in essence, all the same.